Welcome to the Angus Report, a news program for cattle producers.
From American Angus Association headquarters in St. Joseph, Missouri, we bring you the week's top headlines, including the latest on Japanese market access.
Cargill ceases operations at its Plainview, Texas facility. We discuss the implications for the cattle business.
We look at recently released hay production numbers, now at record lows, and research indicating earlier calving heifers stay in the herd longer.
This is the Angus Report. Hello, I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Crystal Albers.
Our top news this week. Japan has eased beef import restrictions that previously banned meat from cattle 20 months and older. The long-awaited news lifts the ban that was set in place following the United States' first case of BSE in 2003. Beef from U.S. cattle up to 30 months will now be allowed into the country. Talk of lifting the ban accelerated last year when a Japanese Food Safety Commission reported that relaxing beef import standards would result in no significant impact to human health. Sources say Japan's new import guidelines will open the market to more than 90% of U.S. beef, and Japan could begin receiving beef under the new criteria in the next several weeks. Officials with the U.S. Meat Export Federation say it's a monumental step for beef demand. Of course, we'll continue to report on this story as it develops.
As international opportunities open, a major beef processing facility in the U.S. closes. Cargill idled its Plainview, Texas beef processing facility this week until further notice. The company, which is among the top 3 major packers, says it is ceasing operations at the facility due to tight cattle numbers and continued drought. Cattle will be redistributed to other plants in the region, and Cargill says the move will allow the company to better operate its 3 remaining beef plants in Texas, Kansas, and Colorado. The news initially resulted in bearish live cattle markets, but as Daryl Peel explains, the closing could potentially help correct the overcapacity in the processing sector and serve as a positive move for cattlemen longer term.
The initial reaction to any sort of news of this magnitude is going to be negative until we sort of sort out the implications. I think what's more important is the negative reaction, I think, will be relatively short-lived. We've anticipated that we might see one of the major plants go offline. We have chronic excess capacity. This plant is one of the mainline plants. It probably represents about 3 to 4% of total beef packing capacity among our fed cattle processing facilities. And that's, that one plant, that helps bring capacity more back into line with production. We probably still have excess capacity, so I think there'll be plenty of demand for the cattle that we are going to produce, and we won't see any real negative impacts from this. In fact, the remaining plants will have somewhat better operating margins because they're going to be able to operate with a little bit higher capacity when they redistribute the supplies that would have gone to this plant.
The Plainview plant had a capacity of more than 4,000 head per day. Cargill says it will consider reopening the plant should cattle numbers rebound.
With low cattle numbers continuing into 2013, beef prices could rise. That means the beef industry must work harder than ever to maintain consumer demand. Longtime cattle industry leader Gary Weber of GM Weber & Associates says consumer trust and satisfaction is the key to maintaining demand for beef and therefore profitability on the ranch.
I think the prevailing view is that trust is the same as or similar to, do you share my values? So when a consumer of certified Angus beef looks at you as a producer, if they're comfortable that you share values, then you're going to start out of the gate with this level of trust. So you have this opportunity with your history in the Angus business to build on the trust that's already there, build on the obvious confidence that's resulted in you receiving probably at least $15 to $20 more per hundredweight for choice Angus carcasses, that you can build on this. And then making sure your plans, right from the farm and the ranch on through the feedlot and on through processing, match up with those values. That's what you need to do to protect your brand. Secondarily, you need to be prepared if there is a mistake, and there will be. People make mistakes. How you respond. And that is linked to what you're communicating back to your customers about. They can trust you and they can be confident in you.
Genomic technologies continue to improve selection tools like EPDs and dollar values released from the American Angus Association. As more data becomes available, ranchers become better equipped to make genetic progress.
There's a lot of folks asking about the new Angus EPDs that have come out since we've adjusted the correlations for the Pfizer 50K test and how that's affected some of the traits, particularly the carcass traits with the new base price changes and so on. So it's twofold. One is the correlations have been increased for the Pfizer 50K, which I think is a good thing. You know, we're describing more genetic variation than ever for some of those traits of economic importance. And then the other thing is they updated the 3-year rolling average for the base prices in there. So I think those things, even though we spread out the EPDs and that it's a little bit of a sticker shock, so to speak, when people get see those for the first time, they really represent a better, true representation of the genetic value of the cattle. I think Angus is comfortably in the driver's seat in our business in selling Angus genetics. It by far and away represents the largest part of our business. I think they have a very comfortable position both in the purebred industry and the commercial cattle industry as well. So I think it's going to be a great year. I expect, there's drought in some areas, which there always is in some part of the country, and that's maybe the downside to where we're at with some things. But I think for the Angus breed, it's going to be another great year.
This year, the National Western Stock Show continued its 69-year tradition of honoring a U.S. and a Canadian operation as livestock industry leaders of the year. The Canadian honoree is the Mark Merrill family and their Bar M Angus Ranch of Hill Springs, Alberta. The registered Angus operation is in its 4th generation of operating the ranch after 54 years in the business. The U.S. recipient is the Cross Diamond Cattle Company of Bertrand, Nebraska, owned by Scott and Kim Ford. Dan Green, National Western Board member and a Green Family Foundation representative, presented the awards. When the Angus Report returns, Paige Wallace reports on how you can qualify for the certified Angus beef brand.
And recent research indicates heifers that calve earlier tend to stay in your herd longer.
Visit Angus.org to continue watching this episode of the Angus Report.
When it comes to buying or selling top quality Angus cattle, experience matters. Visit cotton-associates.com. That's cotton-associates.com to learn about our Angus sales. And join us for our upcoming February sales at the Teixeira Performance Plus Bull Sale, Coleman Angus Trexler Angus Bull Sale, and 44 Farms Spring Bull Sale. Working together, succeeding together. That's Cotton & Associates.